Hello. Have you ever bought a plant and wanted to put it in a ceramic pot but don't know how? Has your plant outgrown the pot that it was planted in? Do you want to keep your plants happy and healthy but you don't know how? Well, you've come to the right place. Today, we will talk you through the materials needed, best practices, and helpful tips on how to repot your own houseplant. Continue watching this video for more information on helpful hands-on demonstrations. During the course of the video, we will cover a number of topics, including materials, the growing environment, preparing the pot, planting, plant care, and repotting. To repot a plant, you will require the following: a plant that is currently in a pot, some soil, another larger pot with a drainage hole. This is where you will be repotting your plant. You will need some stones, a shovel or a trowel, some fertilizer, and finally a watering can or a household jug. It is important that the new pot has a drainage hole to ensure proper drainage for your houseplant and to prevent root rot. Stones are also crucial for drainage and can be a variety of sizes. These stones can be collected from nature or purchased at your local garden store. For soil, ensure that you have purchased a soil that is appropriate for the variety of plant that you are potting. This information is found on the side of the bag and can help promote growth in your plant. A watering can and gardening trowel are helpful for making the repotting process as seamless as possible, as repotting can be a traumatic experience for the plant. If you do not have these two items, there are many alternatives that you could use, such as a cup or a glass in place of the watering can, and a large spoon in place of the trowel. It is important to note that the type of fertilizer you use will be dependent on the needs of the plant that you are repotting. Again, this information can usually be found on the side of the fertilizer packaging.
Plants that call for direct and bright sunlight should be placed right near the window so that the sun's rays can reach them. In the spring and summer months, they should be moved a little bit away from the window just so that their leaves don't get burnt. But in the fall and winter months, there's less hours of sunlight and they tend to get a little bit colder, so you can install a grow light just above them to help keep them alive.
Like this variation of spider plant really thrive in humid environments. These guys don't like to be watered as much, so they absorb the moisture through their leaves instead of through the soil. When you shower every day, the steam creates humidity. This bathroom doesn't receive a lot of direct light, but it still has a window in it. This is a great place to keep other indoor plants that don't require direct lighting, but still need some form of sunlight.
Plants that call for low light or shade do really well for me in the bedroom because I keep the blinds down most of the time. This snake plant thrives in the dark. It doesn't need much light at all, and it does really well when it's ignored. This pothos will tend to grow towards the light, so by not having any light in here, it just gets kind of all scraggly and wild.
Here I have the materials for preparing a potted plant. So first here we have our pot with saucer. You'll notice that this pot has drainage pre-drilled, so there's no worries about your water collecting on the bottom. It will leak out of it once your soil is completely moist. So once you have your pot placed in your saucer, you will add the rocks. These rocks will add a little added protection for your plant, giving it more area for drainage so your roots don't rot. So what you want to do is use the rocks and fill the bottom quarter of this pot. Just like so. And once you fill up the bottom of the plant, keep in mind that these rocks are great for, because you can't find them just in nature, or you can purchase them from local nursery. So what these rocks do, aside from adding, that extra protection of added drainage, they actually help fill larger pots, so you don't have to use up all your soil. You can divide the costs there. So once you have your rocks in your pot, you will add your soil on top. And you want to fill your pot approximately 2 inches below the rim. This allows enough area for your plant for root growth. However, keeping it from overflowing, of course. So there, we filled it up to about 2 inches below. It doesn't have to be an exact measurement, but something's pretty close. So once you have all your potting soil in the pot, you will want to kind of create a little bit of a divot or a hole, enough space for your plant's root ball to fit into the pot. Once all that's done, you're ready for planting. Now that we've prepared our pot for planting, what you want to do is wet your plant in its packaging that you purchased it in. Just make sure that it gets a good soak. Then you can see it dripping on the bottom, so you know that it's completely saturated with water. So once your plant is all moist enough, you can just gently hold the base of the plant and try squeezing the sides. Try not to jostle the plant too much, just to kind of protect it. I don't want to wreck any of the roots or anything like that. So what you want to do is completely dust off the root area. You'll see some of the roots just kind of poking through, but just lightly take away any of the extra soil that isn't connected to the plant. Just kind of exposing the roots a bit more to make it a bit easier for it to grow in this new environment. Now that you've lightly dusted off, again, not jostling the plant too much. You want to put the plant into the hole that you had pre-dug into your pot, and then cover the plant's root ball completely with soil. You can add a little extra soil if needed. I didn't have enough in my pot. Just again, be careful of not moving the plant or hitting the plant too much. Just make sure all sides are evenly covered. And don't worry, if you put a little extra soil in, it will, once it gets a bit moist, it will pack down a little bit better. So yeah, just want to make sure that the root ball is completely covered by the potting soil. And then, once that is nice and covered, you want to add a bit of water. So you want to use room temperature water. You don't want anything too cold or too hot. That will risk damaging the root growth. So want to make sure that you're using enough water to completely moisten the new soil that you've planted your plant in. You'll start to see, when you know that you've watered enough, you'll start to see it pooling on the bottom of the saucer. And there we go. You've planted a potted plant, and now it's ready to be enjoyed in your home.
Ongoing care can sometimes be a challenge. Here are some things to consider and some tips to help you successfully grow and care for your new plants. As mentioned previously in the video, the environment that the plants will be in plays a huge part in their overall care. How and when you water your plant is just as important. When watering a plant, you should always let the soil tell you what it needs. One of the biggest mistakes people make is overwatering. For example, watering the plant once per week, even if it doesn't need it. The best way to tell when it's time to water your plants is to use your finger to feel the soil, about an inch or so down into the pot. If it's moist and smells, the soil is too wet and the plant is starting to rot. If the soil is bone dry and hard, the plant desperately needs a drink. Always use warm water when watering your plant. Add a little water at a time, letting it absorb into the soil before adding more. Continue adding water until you see it start to pool in the saucer. Leave the water in the saucer for a day and then empty out whatever the plant hasn't absorbed. This mimics the natural environment that the plants grow in. Fertilizing is another important part of caring for houseplants. Knowing when and how much to fertilize can be tricky, as there are no clear signs that the plant requires fertilizer. It's best to be proactive and fertilize your plants based on their growing cycle. Start fertilizing in the spring, about 8 weeks before the expected last frost, and carry through the summer. You can fertilize into the fall until about 8 weeks before the first expected fall frost. Plants do not need to be fertilized in the winter, as they typically go dormant and do not produce new growth. The first 3 fertilizer applications should be made at half the recommended strength. You can opt for liquid, granular, or slow release fertilizers. Following the instructions on the product packaging is the easiest way to start. Then you can tailor the amounts to the needs of your plant. Regular fertilization will ensure growth and the health of all your indoor plants. There are some signs of trouble to watch out for. If you catch them early, you can easily get things back on track. Roots are rotting. If the soil is soft and mushy and the roots at the base are climbing out of the pot, you're overwatering. Edges turning black. Sometimes this is low humidity, but oftentimes it can be a fungus growing on the leaves. Yellow leaves. This could be many things, but it's usually just a warning sign. If it's just one leaf and the rest of the plant is green and healthy, then there's really nothing to be concerned about. But if more leaves turn yellow, it's time to investigate temperature, plant placement, and moisture. Wrinkled or dropping leaves, you're underwatering. Lower leaves are bright yellow, you're overwatering. Leaves dropping off. The main reason for leaves dropping off a plant is not enough light. Remember, light is the food. No food, no leaves. The cure is to put the plant in a bright window. Gnats. If you see gnats, you're watering too much and not letting the soil dry out between waterings. Plants typically need to be repotted every 12 to 18 months, depending on how actively they're growing. Some slow-growing plants can be in the pot for years. Early spring, before the start of the growth season, is typically the best time to repot your houseplants. Here are some signs that your plant has outgrown its current home. The soil is drying out faster than normal. The plant's thirst could indicate that it's growing and needs repotting. Roots are growing through the drainage hole. A robust root system will outgrow the pot over time and try to expand. Roots wrapped tightly in a pot are also a sign that the plant needs repotting. Your plant may look limp and even stop growing. Leaves can lose their luster and the plant will fail to show new growth. This is a clear sign it's time to repot your plant. I have an example here of a ficus tree that has outgrown its little pot. You can see down below here the leaves are quite dull, some have even fallen off. The soil is quite dry even though it has been regularly watered, and honestly this plant hasn't grown much in probably the last 2 months, probably a month and a half to 2 months. So this little guy desperately needs a bigger pot. It's going to be a big tree, so I'm going to put it in quite a decent sized pot to give it lots of room to expand. Repotting an ailing plant can often make things worse. A stressed plant won't respond well to a new pot, so it's important to be certain that the plant is struggling as a result of growth and not from some other factors such as over or underwatering, too much fertilizer, or insufficient light. Ensuring your plant has lots of room to grow will help ensure steady, healthy growth.
To sum up, plant research is always important when we want to grow a plant. In the video, we talked about a successful plant growth. For successful plant growth, we need right material to take care proper, and we need a right environment, proper drainage, right use of soil, and taking care of future issues. And then we need a right quality and a quantity of water. Water shouldn't given neither be in excess nor in shortage. If the plant showing some changes, then pot needs to be changed or soil needs to be changed. This is how we can take care properly of a plant.